But I don't think that's always terrible. Again, if you have some level of intelligence, I was born pretty poor. Like I said, lived in like a white ghetto. The problem there was households without a father that were either in prison or just left their kids to go on their walkabouts. But white people now we're talking about. And heroin addiction was really rife. It was the last mass scale riots, like real riots, not for a political purpose, but for a group of people that lived in that area. Just smash it up. And it's so weird. If we've only got like about 4 or 5 people listening right now, but I'm going to tell you something very intimate. I was only like about 4 or 5 when this happened. But if you're willing to listen, no need to report or do screen records at this point. But there was this huge riot. I won't name the place of the little area I lived in. My parents had a small food business and we lived in the flat above. We ended up moving to like a more middle class, nice 3-bedroom house. Nothing fancy, but again, just good, decent, above just the middle. But the riots began because in this small food business we had, there was a young chap. He was about 19, 20. He used to help with food preparation behind the scenes of this small food business. And he and his friends stole a car. And I've met this guy like 3 or 4 times when I was very little. Had a couple of really weird, deep conversations. It was kind of almost nerdy, but he lived in this real ghetto area, so a lot of his friends were probably ghetto. But he was actually fairly sweet. And when my parents, they could not afford childcare. Up until I was about 6 or 7, we were very poor. And then by about 6, like I said, they did really well for themselves. The real like English story. But he and his friends, they stole a car. They smashed into a lamppost. And the reason they smashed the car is because they were being chased by 3 or 4 different police cars. And by the way that you're supposed to do things like procedurally with the police, they broke their own procedure. Basically, there is a certain limit. You would have to Google the story. If you subscribe and you hit me up, I'll give you more details. But basically, they shouldn't have been so aggressive in the cars to chase him. He and his friends ended up smashing into a lamppost, and they all died. His name was Darren. And after he died, the people that were in the area where I was born and raised, they rioted. The news reports came out. The police were at fault because they didn't follow their own procedural methods. They put an undue amount of pressure into the offending car. They should have put down to one car. They should have waited for a chance to communicate with other police. Other police stations, other police units to get them to either disable the car or slow them down safely. But yeah, they did not do that. And then after they died, the people of the village, obviously high on heroin, poor, have less invested in society, less care about the consequences. They rioted. And the little street, which was like, say, 200 yards up, it was like the main little shopping street, you would say, to go get your groceries. There was like a grocer's, there was a butcher's, there was a bakery. There was a couple other little shops to provide little trinkets. This would have been pre-DVD. Maybe there was a VHS place there. They all riot, and basically they smashed up every single shop. I'm talking bats and bricks, every shop. Many of them were actually burnt down. They would throw like petrol bombs in them. And then the guys there, because they're all rugged, don't give a fuck. Not gangsters, but some of them actually were real gangsters, like selling drugs. But a lot of them just don't give a fuck. Let's get into a fist fight every day of the week. It's fun. The only shop they did not damage, and again, one day, perhaps, dear Low Tone Podcast family, I'll give you the details to prove this. The only shop they did not break, and again, nothing to do with me, I was about like 5 or 6 at this point, that they didn't break was my parents' food business. Because they had a small, when I say food business, a fast food business in England. If we're talking about British culture, fish and chip shops, son. Curry sauce and mushy peas, if you please. Get me. And they didn't smash up a little bit because they respected my father, that he was down to chat. He wasn't a crazy big fight or anything, but he was rugged because, like I said, he's just an old soul, but more kind and just decent to everybody. Never discriminated against anybody. He loved everybody equally and thought that people that tried to keep other types of group of peoples down or judge them, judgment, I think that's better than caring more about race, religion, or anything else. Judgment. He didn't have that. So about 10, 15 years they've been there. Actually, it would have been a little bit less, about 8 years. So the whole community had gotten to know him, and they respected him because he had a thick accent, and his command of the English language was almost complete, but misused words, but in a charming, adorable way almost. They did not, the only shop that did not get burnt down or smashed down was our small fish and chips business. And I would venture to guess, obviously it's not scientific, 30 to 40% was because they knew my father was just a kind soul. Rugged, not pussy, but nice without no judgment. Secondly, because that's where the people of the community ate 3 times a day. It was such like a ghetto area that nobody in the household was cooking. Nobody was saying, it was just, it's not even a judgment. It's just life was too chaotic. There was a single mother while the father of the kids in the household was either in prison or had left or had died from heroin overdose, which was like rampant at the time, or had just left the city because he was like, oh shit, I'm not Jamaican, but the idea of having kids is Jamaican me want to leave, son. And this is all white people, by the way. That is part of British culture.